So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land in which we're meeting today, and I pay my respect to elders past, present, and emerging, and to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people that might be on the call with us today. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Sue Hegarty. Sue joined the Pancare team about 6 months ago. She has a 28-year history in cancer nursing. She was most recently Chief Support and Advocacy at Ovarian Cancer Australia. At OCA, Sue led a group of specialist ovarian cancer nurses, psychologists, social workers, and other allied health professionals in delivering an Australia-wide support and information for women with ovarian cancer. Under Sue's stewardship, the organisation's nurse and allied health team transformed from just 3 people in 2016 to 24 in 2022. Sue is deeply invested in ensuring that in her role as head of program development and advocacy, that she does improves the survival and experience of people diagnosed with pancreatic, esophageal, stomach, liver, and biliary cancer. Sue will give an overview today of the advocacy priorities at the Pancare Foundation, including information on state of the nation in upper GI cancer, programs funded by the Australian government, advocating for the listing of new cancer medicines, and improving access to personalised medicine. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you so much for having me here as part of the group today. I've been so looking forward to it, and I think it's especially great to be here today because it's the first ever Cancer Nurse Awareness Day. So a big shout out to Alison, who's one of our cancer nurses. So I've put together some slides today, but I'm really keen to have your questions as we go through the slides. So I'll get Alison and Joe to manage the questions because I'm sort of in the presenter view for the slides, but really keen to hear your thoughts, what you see as priorities and any questions you've got about the content I'm presenting. I just wanted to share before I get started my why. As Alison mentioned, I worked at Ovarian Cancer Australia for 8 years, and I've been a cancer nurse, my whole nursing career. It's something I'm deeply passionate about, and always it was a career goal of mine to work at Pancare. You can see some beautiful pictures there. That's my brother-in-law with his dad, Jimmy, and my best friend, Gab, and her dad, Peter, who both had pancreatic cancer. And it was a real wish of mine to work for this organisation and see what we can, do as a team to improve both survival outcomes, but also the impact of people living with upper GI cancers. So that's a bit about what are one of my motivators. I thought I might just go through what I'm going to cover off today, and I'm really happy to take questions today, but also for people to email me things that we don't get to cover today. So I'll talk a little bit about our government advocacy, the State of the Nation report that was developed a couple of years ago at Pancare, what we do in terms of listings of new medicines. There's a program that around accessing personalised medicine that I'll take you through. What are some of the programs we've got on the horizon for development and how you can be involved in advocacy at Pancare? So I guess just a recap of upper GI cancers. I'm sure everyone on this support group is well aware of this, but Pancare's priorities is really around supporting people with the upper GI cancers, all listed there on the slide: liver, bile duct, esophageal, stomach, and pancreas cancers. And we know that we're doing a lot of advocacy and research to improve survival outcomes for all those upper GI cancers. One of the most significant ways we do that is working with federal politicians. We've got some sort of key advocacy goals that really guide us, and that's about making upper GI cancers a national priority at a government level. Advocating for improved services for people with upper GI cancers, and also about that that time to access to drugs is another really important issue. And I must applaud Elizabeth, who some of you might have previously met, that was in the role before me, together with Doug Hawkins, has done a lot of advocacy at a government level. And I'll take you through some of those great outcomes that have happened through that government advocacy. I guess, like I've sort of captured there, it's all about improving the person's experience, and we do that through a number of key ways: lobbying government, developing submissions, recommendations into key policy documents, evidence up to the board, and really making a strong case for investment. One of, I think, the critical things that Pancare has done is develop the State of the Nation into upper GI cancers. This landmark document is the first for upper GI cancer. It was developed by Insight Economics with the Pancare team, and a lot of consultation with both researchers, surgeons, medical oncologists, and people with the lived experience to really look at what are the key issues for people with upper GI cancers, where are the gaps in research, and what should be the priorities for future investment. This document is going to be formally launched at the end of this year by Jed Carney, who's the Assistant Health Minister up in Canberra. And I think it's a really great opportunity for the spotlight to be shone on upper GI cancers. And this document's really guiding what we're prioritising at a government level around what needs to take place to improve the outcomes. So just a couple of pictures there. That's a very cheesy selfie of me with Mark Butler, and that was up in Canberra this year. And I was saying to colleagues, I always find it, a bit embarrassing when you're sort of stalking the main person in the room, but I think it's really important that we're well known to Mark Butler, who's the current health minister, who oversees all sort of cancer spending in the country, and he's, a strong advocate of Pancare, and Doug, our CEO, has developed a really strong relationship with him and his team. You can see in the green dress there in that picture at the front is the Assistant Minister, Jed Carney, who will be launching the State of the Nation in Parliament House this year. And again, another real keen supporter of Pancare. And through the work of the team, we've got the federal politicians across what are the key issues and where we can have the greatest impact for people living with upper GI cancers. One of the key roles that we play is developing submissions for government inquiries. And two I wanted to call out was the Senate inquiry into rare and less common cancers. And you can see there a picture of Doug, our CEO, and David Menzies, who heads up our support team. They actually spoke at the Senate inquiry into rare and less common cancers and spoke to the issues that were outlined in the State of the Nation. That was a really great opportunity for Doug and Dave to raise those key issues that the people with lived experience like yourself had shared with us around what those unmet needs are, and also to make a really strong case for the need for more investment into upper GI cancer research. Another key policy document that was released at the end of November last year was the Australian Cancer Plan, and that's a 10-year plan that the government's developed to really guide investment into cancer. And Pancare, Liz, who was in the role previously, put in extensive submissions and was involved in workshops, and some really key areas were captured in the Australian Cancer Plan that then enable us moving forward to really seek funding for government. I'll talk about some of the outcomes of both of these shortly. Once I get through all the sort of work that we do, I'll talk about some of the outcomes, but really important that we have the voice of people with a lived experience in all of those policy documents to drive investment from government into upper GI cancers. So another key area that we do a lot of work in is when there's new drugs that are being listed through the listing cycle. There are a few steps involved in that. So there's opportunities at that time for both people with a lived experience and also organisations like Pancare to make cases for investment in new medicines. You can see there that there were a couple of drugs that were listed, durvalumab and nivolumab, late last year. There are a number of drugs that are going through the listing process. There are some further drugs that are up for the November Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee meeting, and they'll be posted out on the Pancare website for people to put in their consumer comments. And certainly those committees really strongly consider the views of consumers and why it's a really important priority for us as an organisation to put in what is the lived experience and what we see as an important role for those medications. We do work quite closely with the PBAC committees around the real benefits of progression-free survival that can be one of the outcomes from trials to really make the case why that's a really important outcome for people with upper GI cancers. So, please keep an eye out for those call outs for submissions. We really value your voice. You can go directly to the PBAC committees and the Medical Service Advisory Committee, and you can also share comments with us that we include in the full submissions that we put in. So I mentioned earlier that collaboration with the Australian Cancer Plan. Another really important piece of policy work we've been doing recently is with the Health Technology Assessment Review. We do know that time to listing of drugs in Australia, there is a delay, and we know that we want to speed that process up. The great thing is we're in a time of immense drug discovery, but we need to improve our system of listing. So we've been heavily involved in that in terms of putting in comments around what those delays mean to people with upper GI cancer and what might be some possible solutions at a government level. The Health Technology Assessment report is in Minister Butler's office at the moment, considering those recommendations. And I must say I'm really excited to see what those recommendations are and how we can improve access to treatments in this country. We're also working quite a lot around access to personalised medicine. That was one of the key recommendations in the State of the Nation report. And we know from speaking with people with upper GI cancer, the emphasis on, being able to access clinical trials and also personalised medicine. Another issue that we're working on at the moment with Diabetes Australia is access to continuous glucose monitoring, particularly for people who've had their pancreas removed that need to monitor blood sugars and doing that manually. So we're working with Diabetes Australia to get the listing criteria broadened so that people who've developed diabetes as a result of surgery actually can have access to that new technology. So now to talk a little bit, so why are we doing all this at a government level? And I guess we can talk about some of the great outcomes that have come out of all of that work that's been done with government. One of the key initiatives, government put $1.26 million to Pancare for four really critical pieces of work, one of which is the development of an optimal care pathway for biliary cancer that doesn't exist in Australia currently. Melanie Regan, one of our amazing cancer nurses, is leading that project, and there's a massive collaborative committee that's from specialists from across Australia and internationally developing those biliary cancer guidelines that will be released next year. We've also led a GP and nurse practice nurse education on esophageal and stomach cancer that was funded as part of that $1.26 million. We've also got a consumer awareness campaign about esophageal and stomach cancer that will be taking place later this year. And we also established the first upper GI cancer telehealth nurse as well through that funding. That really enabled us then to put in for another round of funding. So last year, as part of the announcement of the Australian Cancer Plan, there's a new program called the Australian Cancer Nurse Navigation Program that's been funded across Australia. And the whole aim of that program is to make sure that all people with cancer get access to the support they need. That was a big thing that was named in the Australian Cancer Plan, that some people aren't getting the support they need. There's sort of three main arms to that funded program. One arm will be more nurses in hospitals to see people when they're first diagnosed, and that's under the All Can Nurse program. Through the Cancer Council Australia, there'll be a nurse navigation service through their 13, 11, 20 program. And then there's 10 NGOs like Pancare that have been given funding to expand telehealth services. So we've been awarded $2.85 million over 4 years for our nursing and counselling service, which is just an incredible outcome for people with upper GI cancers, that there'll be more access to cancer nurses and our counselling service. Another incredible outcome, and this was through all the work that was done through, I mentioned earlier, the Senate inquiry into rare and less common cancers. A key outcome of that has been that government's investing in the Medical Research Future Fund of $150 million over 10 years. And that's the low survival missions being worked up at the moment and will be released in a couple of years' time. But I think that's just a really incredible outcome. It's one of the key things that we call out in the State of the Nation is that we need more funding into research into upper GI cancers, and that fund will enable a lot of the researchers in the upper GI cancer space to apply for funding. So a really great win for people with the disease in the sector. I did mention earlier I was going to talk about increased access to personalised medicine. That's one of the key recommendations, as I mentioned, in the State of the Nation. And there is a program called Omico. It's a not-for-profit program that has received funding from the government to do what we call molecular tumour testing. And that means that when we do that, we look at each individual person's cancer, and that can be from at the time of surgery, some of the tissue is sent off, and then the scientists analyse that person's individual cancer, and it's sort of like as unique as your fingerprint. You know, what is the genetic makeup of your individual cancer? And that's what they're doing through Omico, offering people access to this testing. And that's through the CASP program at Omico. The program is for people in Australia with all types of solid cancers that are advanced, incurable or poor prognosis cancers, and that includes people with pancreatic cancer regardless of their cancer stage. There's 23,000 people that are eligible for that molecular tumour testing. And if you've got questions or if you're interested in knowing more, you can visit the Omico website that's on the slides there. But I also encourage you to speak with your treating team. All referrals to that program come through the treatment team medical oncologists. But what they do is once they've worked out that personal genetic profile, the team look at what clinical trials are available and can be matched to your particular, the mutations that they've found in the cancer. So it's really, you know, at the cutting edge of science in the treatment of cancers. So, you know, please do speak to your clinician if that's something that interests you. We are putting up some more information on the Pancare website that will be out in the next couple of weeks, and we'll post that out on our Facebook page and in our newsletter once that information goes up. Certainly feel free to call our cancer nurses if you've got further questions, knowing that they can give you general information, but you really need to speak to your treatment team if that is something that you're interested in pursuing. So another part of my role is looking at program development, and what we're looking to do at the start of next year is a consumer survey looking at, you know, what are the needs of the people that we support? What do you want from Pancare in terms of services and priorities? From that, we'll then develop our program strategy so that we make sure we deliver back what the services are that have the most meaning for you. Some projects that we do have that we know are priorities at the moment is a website redevelopment. So we're looking looking into getting funding for that at the moment. We have put in a submission for a grant to the Australian government for a diet and cancer information hub. We know that there's a lot of unmet need around upper GI cancers and diet and cancer. We're also looking at increased funding for our financial assistance program, and we know that many people are struggling with the cost of living, and encourage people to reach out to Alison, who our wonderful cancer nurse on this Zoom meeting manages our financial assistance program. And we're also looking at another grant for resources for our First Nations community with upper GI cancer. So there's some of our priorities, but always love to hear from people what you see as the priorities, and we'll certainly be collecting that information in our consumer survey. Just the closing slide here is around how you can be involved in advocacy. I've mentioned those opportunities where you can share your story. We do have advisory groups for all of our resource and program developments. You can join those advisory groups. Just shoot us an email if you're interested. We also do put out posts on Facebook when we're looking for people for various committees. As I mentioned earlier, responding to those submissions for drug listings and speaking with your local MP. I've put my email address there. I'm really happy to take any emails or questions that don't get covered today. I am on annual leave tomorrow, just so you know. I won't receive it till I'm back in the office on Monday. And I love this quote, and I think it speaks to what we're achieving at Pancare and what we as a community can do to improve upper GI cancers. And that's: never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. So that's the conclusion of my formal presentation. But as I mentioned, I'm really happy to take any questions and keen to hear what you see are the priorities, and if there's things that I haven't mentioned today that are of interest to you.